Good evening, everyone. We at ReachIvy are delighted to welcome you to our first live broadcast event created specially for candidates who requested us to do events globally, and this is one of them. Today's panel is on how can the MBA enhance your entrepreneurial journey, and we have two very special and very accomplished guests joining us. But before that, a little bit about ReachIvy.
ReachIvy is a premium education advisory that helps aspiring students get accepted into top-tier educational institutions globally for high school, undergraduate, master's, MBA, and executive education programs.
Vibha Kagzi is the CEO and founder of ReachIvy. She has an MBA from the Harvard Business School and a Bachelor's of Science from Carnegie Mellon University. She has also pursued courses at University of California, Berkeley, the London School of Economics, and the Indian School of Business. Vibha is the co-president of the Harvard Club of Mumbai and on the Carnegie Mellon Admissions Council. Over to you, Vibha.
Thank you, Nasheen, for that introduction. I'm going to now introduce our speakers. First up, we have Shuchi Pandya, an economics graduate from the Sloan School of Business and an MBA from the Wharton School of Business. She now holds the position and is CEO and co-founder of Pipa and Bella. Shuchi received the Schultz Ziedman Award, which is a 30,000 grant at Wharton for contribution and commitment to entrepreneurship. Shuchi started her career in Mumbai at Hindustan Unilever, where she worked on brands like Pears and Fair and Lovely. In 2007, Shuchi started her own jewelry brand, Blue Banyan, that catered to the sensibilities of urban Indian women and retailed in stores such as Fab India and Electric. Shuchi is now the co-founder of Pipa and Bella, a jewelry retail firm. Pipa and Bella follows a unique business structure, encouraging women into a flexible yet fun career path through the concept of social selling. Thank you, Shuchi, for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
We also have with us Gautam Shewakramani, who received a Bachelor of Science from the College of Engineering at the University of Notre Dame in 2005, where he double majored in computer science and film. Gautam received his MBA from the MIT Sloan School of Management in 2009. He's the CEO and co-founder and founder of Audio Compass, a venture-funded startup that helps you explore the stories of India by turning your phone into a personal tour guide. Audio Compass has been recognized as the official tour partner of the Government of India, Ministry of Tourism, and several UNESCO World Heritage Sites, including the Taj Mahal. Gautam is also an active angel investor and advises several early-stage companies. Prior to founding Audio Compass, he was a strategy and operations consultant at Deloitte and worked at a quantitative hedge fund in New York City. Gautam, thank you and for your willingness to share your personal experiences with everyone on the chat this evening. So my first question to the both of you, I'd like to start where it all began. Your early years, your childhood. Can you give us an insight into those early years, please?
Sure, I can start. I think for me, school wasn't, being in school and 11th and 12th standard in college wasn't necessarily about excelling at any one activity. It was more about exposure. I think that was for me the most valuable and most important thing that I think informed, and made me who I am today in terms of the choices I made. At home, my parents were fairly liberal in terms of encouraging me to explore different career paths and different, academic options before settling on what I did. So, Shuchi, I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, so actually, ironically, for me, it was the complete opposite. I actually grew up in a fairly strict household. We only had about half an hour of TV a week, and it was all about the grades. So it was fairly disciplined, I would say, growing up. It wasn't actually until I hit 18 and I went to the US to study that began to get exposure to a lot of new ideas and a lot of new experiences. So I studied abroad in Italy for 6 months. That was actually a pretty life-changing experience for me. I realized that I didn't want to do something that was safe or risk-free. And so I think for me, I kind of started off in a much more safer path, and then as I grew older, I realized that I wanted to do something more challenging.
Okay, so segueing from your point about as you grew older, you wanted to do something more challenging. At what point did you think you were ready for the MBA?
So for me, I felt that I was ready after spending 2 years at Deloitte Consulting. So this would be 2 years after I graduated from my undergrad. Obviously, that would mean I had to start my process, 1 year after graduating from undergrad, because it takes about a year to get through. And the reason I felt that I was ready is because I had felt that at Deloitte, my learning had kind of stagnated in the role that I was in. I think in hindsight, that was a bit of a mistake. I think I could have spent maybe a year or two more getting some more experience, not necessarily at the same job, but just doing something else. Again, going with this theme of kind of getting more exposure, I think it would have helped me understand more what I wanted to do and what I wanted to get out of an MBA if I'd spent another year doing something else. It doesn't necessarily have to be a job. It could have been traveling around the world or something else. But yeah, that was my kind of experience.
Yeah, for me, I would say that, after I graduated, I actually started working with my family business. And the thing is that, when you're in a family business, it's great because you get all these amazing leadership opportunities, and, you get to be part of major strategic decisions. But I think after about 5 years or 4.5 years, I felt that I was hitting a wall, in terms of learning something concrete and learning something tangible. And I felt that, maybe it would be a really good idea to just go back to school and kind of reset everything that I already knew about business. Because, being in a family business, you're always around people who have a certain way of thinking. And I think business school would have opened me up to a lot more ideas and a lot more different ways of thinking about things. So that's when I think about 4 years after I started working was when I felt I was absolutely ready.
Okay, main reason we hosted this talk and we had you come on the panel was because a lot of students we interact with want to be entrepreneurs. They're pretty certain that they want to start their own company. Some already have their own startups, and they're still debating whether an MBA is worth their time or not. So at what stage did you know that you wanted to go down the entrepreneurial path? Was it something you knew before business school, something you developed at school, or something that happened post? At what stage did you know that you wanted to actually take this channel, this path?
So that's a good question. So my family, is a business family. My family is in the hotel business in India. I knew, sort of I think even when I was an undergrad, at some point, at some level, I knew I wanted to do my own thing and start my own business. But I don't think I'd ever given it serious thought at the level where, I was ready to commit to starting my own company, even when I actually applied to business school. I actually even did, participated in recruiting in business school. Of course, I was involved in the entrepreneurship stuff and the tech activities happening at MIT, and there's a lot of them. But I actually recruited. I got a consulting job, which I was supposed to start at in September of 2009, which is when I graduated. I graduated in the summer of 2009, and I actually something didn't feel right about it, so I actually deferred it by 1 year and decided to kind of explore my options. I happened to graduate in 2009, so it was, they were also quite open to me deferring for a year, given the state of the economy. And I kind of, took that year to really figure out what my options are. I didn't even start my company in that year. I actually just explored my options. I actually traveled quite a bit, and then I realized I wanted to start my company, and I started up in the summer. Thought that, it made sense for me, and that's when I communicated to them that I didn't want to kind of come back, and I wanted to do my own thing and remain in India.
For me, I would say that, when it's similar in the sense that I think for me, business was part of dinner table conversations growing up. So I always knew that whatever I did, it would be in a business area. But I think that, the great thing that business school did for me was that when I went to business school, it's almost as if you're suddenly at this blank slate and you have so many different options that you can try. And so I actually ended up going to all these employer information sessions. I had absolutely no experience in finance or private equity or consulting, but I thought that just getting an MBA from Wharton could maybe even stand me a chance, or maybe I could learn a little bit more about these different industries. So I did all of that for the first probably 4 months. I went to every single EIS. And I think for me, it was more a process of elimination. My gut always told me that entrepreneurship is what I should do and what I'm good at. But I think, just being at business school and having the opportunities, I just felt it would be a waste not to try it, and not to see it, not to explore it. So.
Okay, so that's very helpful. So it seems like you both used business school to explore your options, to even understand what options were available out there. You used it as sort of exploratory phase of your lives. The concept for your business, was that fostered at business school in any way? Was there any influence or impact school had in coming up with your ideas for your business?
So for me, actually, definitely the idea was seeded at MIT. I actually took a course, a fairly popular course at MIT. It's a cross-listed course between the business school, Sloan, and some of the engineering departments. The course was called iTeams, and what the course does is it essentially connects MBA students with labs that have technologies that are yet to be commercialized at MIT. So you're working with companies that are with labs, postdocs, PhDs, professors that are developing all kinds of things, from medical technology to material sciences and computer sciences and stuff. So as part of that course, I actually had an opportunity to study the tourism market as a potential market to apply this technology. Turned out that tourism actually wasn't the right market for that specific technology, but in studying tourism, I kind of realized what kind of opportunity there was in India for Audio Compass and for delivering content to users while they are traveling, and that's really when the idea got seeded. Of course, I didn't start it then, but that's when the idea came about.
Yeah, so for me, I would say that, similar in that first year at Wharton, I participated in this 6-month consulting gig, which is known as the Global Immersion Program, wherein you can apply and basically be like a consultant in with a team of other students to work on a specific project for an international client. So, our client was a retail client based in Australia. And at that point in time, I had absolutely no experience in retail, had zero idea about retail metrics. But, just working with these clients on a very close basis. And again, just, getting that sort of taste of consulting, I'd never done it before, really got me excited about the retail sector. And I began thinking of ideas that I could explore in India within the retail space. Of course, India is a very different environment, but the great thing about, again, an MBA is that you're in such a safe environment. So in the summer between my first and second year, instead of taking up an internship, I actually came back to Bombay and tested out my idea. And it was great because if it didn't work, I could just go back and start recruiting or, look at other fallback options. But the fact that I had that 3-month really safe, no judgment period was really, really helpful for me. It gave me a lot of data points with respect to my business.
Okay, so it seems like fairly tangible, fairly direct influence in your business, the 2 years at the MBA. However, from a financial standpoint, would you still consider the MBA a good ROI? So a lot of students who want to start their businesses are wondering whether the $80,000 investment is worth it for them, both in terms of the money as well as the 2-year investment. Because the argument is that, hey, if I want to start my own business, why would I go to business school? I'm not looking to go to Goldman or McKinsey. So as entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs out of business school, what would be your feedback for that viewpoint?
I think getting an MBA, like for me, it gave me a lot of confidence that I could actually change the world, and it really was, when you talk about returns and investment, I feel like the biggest thing for an MBA was it was an investment in myself. And yes, it's an expensive one, no doubt about that. But I don't think starting a company and doing an MBA necessarily have to be two mutually exclusive things. A lot of my classmates, I'm now 5 years out of B school. They're now working at startups or starting their own company. It's a very personal decision. They spent the first couple of years, 2-3 years out of business school working at, your McKinseys and Goldmans, getting there, paying off their loans, and then they decided that, they were ready to take that step in their life, maybe even saving up some money. So I think from my point of view, the ROI in an MBA is it's a 20-year ROI. Like I'm still feeling the return, so it's too early for me to say. If you're just looking at financial, obviously, that's a different calculation. But I think I would caution about looking at it only from a financial point of view.
Okay, so you're saying one should take a long-term perspective on the ROI, and even after 4-5 years, you still feel like at least like it was a good investment in yourself, and then you're saying, okay,
absolutely.
Fair enough. So you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it really depends on how you define ROI. I think for me, it's a lot more intangible. Again, confidence builder, credibility. Anything from when you just go out there and you tell people you have an MBA from a top 10 university, whether you're talking to a VC or whether you're talking to just some client or a customer, suddenly you've just got so much more credibility. And let's face it, I mean, India is a society where those things do matter. We're not as evolved as Silicon Valley, where like an 18-year-old kid can just go and start a company without an undergrad degree or without a grad degree, and like someone's throwing hundreds and thousands of dollars at them, right? So in India, it is a little bit more about brand, and it is a little bit more about education. So I think that, ROI is 100% there. It's a question of how you define it and how you look at it in the long run.
Okay, so since you mentioned the intangibles, I want to just push back to Shuchi on the tangibles. So Penn recently tweeted that they gave out $400,000 to entrepreneurs. So give us some specifics on how Penn actually helped you with your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, so I mean, Penn is actually great with entrepreneurs. I mean, they have aspiring entrepreneurs. They have tons of classes, VC classes, classes that you can take from actual entrepreneurs teaching. So it's not just some PhD professor who's teaching you, but an entrepreneur who's gone through the daily exercise of doing things. So, they actually teach some classes which are amazing. I actually was fortunate enough to get a $30,000 grant, which helped me with my initial pilot and testing out of the business. You can apply for those things. There's also something called the Venture Initiation Program at Wharton, where if you apply again, you get to a whole bunch of mentors. And these mentors will not only give you access to other well-established contacts in the area of in the industry that you're looking at, but also alumni. And again, I think that was in business school, but even moving back home to India after I graduated, the Wharton network helped me connect with potential venture capitalists and just other mentors to advise my business.
Okay, so lots of direct tangible benefits, because a lot of times Wharton is misconstrued as a gateway to Wall Street. So I'm happy that you've been able to illustrate these very, very specific aids.
Yeah, and they're changing that, doing a lot to change that image, So they're in fact overcompensating by providing a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs. So they're trying really hard.
Gautam, could you sort of resonate this for MIT as well? Is it sort of assistance, and just give us some specifics if you could?
So I think what makes MIT, at least for me, what made MIT special, and I've been you keep reading stuff about universities and things. I think MIT is all about it's really good at helping students turn technologies, turn ideas into successful businesses, and that support started tangibly as well as intangibly from the day I got to Sloan, and it continues past. I mean, to give you some specific examples, Firstly, I think like one thing that I really enjoyed about Sloan is that a lot of the classes are actually, and the cases that they choose are taught from the point of view of an entrepreneur, or for example, my corporate finance class was almost every case we did was taught from the point of view of the CFO of the business, not necessarily the investment banker. There's this class called G Lab, Global Entrepreneurship Lab, that actually connects you up with entrepreneurs across the world. I actually personally spent 4.5 weeks living in Thailand and another 3 or 4 months working with an entrepreneur in Thailand, helping him build his business. That was a business that was doing something in the medical technology space. And I've actually been on the receiving end of that as well. My company has actually hosted G Lab teams. And because I'm an MIT alum and an MIT company, it's expensive to host a G Lab team. It costs almost about $10,000 to host a team with the airfare and the hotels and things. And MIT, because I'm an alum, MIT actually supported me and paid subsidized a huge chunk, I think almost 50-60% of what my company had to pay to get those students to come and work with me and advise me. So those are some of the direct examples. There's also, initiatives like the venture mentoring service. That's something that helps you while you're there as well as after you're gone. I'm actually planning to have Audio Compass join the venture mentoring service sometime this year. There's the Entrepreneurship Center that's all about entrepreneurship and connecting entrepreneurs, current aspiring entrepreneurs with alums. And the best thing I think out there is the Technology Licensing Office. I think it's really cool that MIT actually gives preference to students who want to license technology as opposed to, say, a large company like, I don't know, Philips or Johnson & Johnson that might want to license a technology out of MIT. So a lot of support all across campus at MIT. I don't think anyone who wants to go into entrepreneurship will be disappointed.
Great. So that's very helpful to understand how the schools enabled you to at least embark on this entrepreneurial journey. Once you embarked on the idea, the journey, you hired your initial teams, the first roadblock we hit as entrepreneurs is obviously fundraising. Because initially you can seed your business and you come to a point where you're like, okay, I think I need money. So from a funding perspective, could you share how you managed to circumvent this issue and what were the challenges you faced as you raised funding and some strategies you deployed to fundraise for your ventures?
So fundraising was a pretty difficult exercise. I'm sure a lot of the viewers, if they've read about this, you see a lot of famous VCs saying that raising money is it's like dating or marriage. You got to start by flirting with the investor, then you take it to the next level and you have a couple of like one-on-one meetings, and then you kind of decide to commit to each other, and it's a two-way street. So for me, it was a very long journey to raise the money. I started off the business with some personal savings and some family and friends family support. My business actually became cash flow positive for a while, but I realized that business model wasn't going to scale. I'll talk about it a little bit later. And that's when I decided to go out and raise money. So I decided to talk to strategic investors as well as VCs. It's definitely a challenging process, and like Shuchi said, I think the fact that I had an MBA helped me a lot, both with opening doors as well as being able to actually put all the materials together. At the end of the day, investors want to have a coherent business plan. It doesn't have to be a fancy PowerPoint, but to be able to articulate a business idea and what your value proposition is, that's all the kind of stuff you learn at an MBA. So I think bottom line is it's tough. You got to start early and keep the process going till you're ready to buy. That was my experience.
Okay, so your advice is start early. Great. Okay, Shuchi, over to you.
Yeah, so I guess my advice or my experience probably told me the opposite, where I think that my advice would be, for as long as you can, try and avoid getting funding. I think that especially as an early stage startup, and the only reason I say that is because I think that the first 8 months, any startup is just kind of swimming around, trying to figure stuff out, trying to figure out your vision. I think if you expose yourself at that stage, then it's very possible that the VC or whoever, they may put money into you, but they may negotiate a low valuation, or they may tell you to change the strategy of your business and you may not have enough data points to prove that strategy. So I think there's a little bit more of a risk when you go out there. And of course, it's not easy trying to get that money, but initially to run your business. But if you have some savings, and I think friends and family are great, like Gautam said, get them to buy into you and get them to buy into the fact that they love you and that they'll invest in you early on. So use that money wisely in the beginning to really prove something, and then really go out there and raise money. That's my advice.
Okay, so in a nutshell, Shuchi's advice is to hold off on your funds as long as you can, and only then raise money when you actually really, really need to go out and raise money. Great. So contradictory advice, but I guess that's the real nature of entrepreneurship. There is no real right answer. There is no one answer. There's no one shoe fits all. I guess it's a matter of your business model and your needs at that point. Super. Moving on to the next question. This is more related to skill set. And I know starting a business requires a multitude of skill sets. But having started your own companies, if you had to pinpoint the most important skill set, what would it be and why?
Okay, that's a really hard question. I think with starting a business and running it, let alone running a successful business, just running a business in general, I think there's just a lot of challenges and a lot of lessons I'm still learning every day. If you really had to force me, I would say, for me, the one biggest lesson or challenge is, depending on which way you look at it, is actually getting the right kind of talent on board and attracting the right people to your team and really around the vision you have. And I say that you have it. Once you get the right team on board, it's no longer your vision. It's a shared vision that everybody needs to run with. And I think, especially being in India, it's pretty hard getting the right people, and you got to really jump when you find the right person. For example, we were looking for someone on to help us on the marketing side. On our social media, we were looking for someone experienced. We found someone. We actually interviewed a lot of people who were perfect for the role, but they didn't kind of gel on the wavelength side and on the vision. And then I met someone else.
I think we had a little bit of a technical glitch. Are we back? Yes.
We're back.
Okay. Yeah, I think we missed Shuchi's comments on the most important skill. I think there was an audio issue right there.
Okay, yes, I'll start from the beginning. So basically, all I was saying was that with respect to the skill, I think that you have to be prepared you have to know how to deal with uncertainty. I think it's a very unlikely scenario that in the first 8 months of your startup, you're going to end up changing your strategy, and it's actually probably really good that you do. So, I think that you have to be willing to do that. A lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in their idea and not willing to change, and they're not as open-minded. So I think that just learning to deal with uncertainty, having the resilience to say, I'm okay with the fact that I have to work on weekends, or I have to work 12, 13 hours a day. I may not be able to go on vacations while all my friends are doing that. I think just knowing that it's going to be a big lifestyle change, being okay with that is something that every entrepreneur should 100% be prepared to deal with.
Okay, so good resilience, ability to deal with uncertainty, and ability to work with people and identify key people. I think that's the general sense I got from this conversation. Very, very useful tip. Thank you for sharing those. Gautam, let's talk about the business. So can you tell us a little bit about Audio Compass, just from idea generation to implementation? Give us a little overview of the business. And if you could just also share a few obstacles you faced and how you circumvented those obstacles.
Sure. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about the business, and then jump in. Once I tell you a little bit of background, I think the obstacles will start making a lot more sense to the viewers. So the idea for Audio Compass was conceived, because I think at its most fundamental level, travel is really about stories, and I felt that from a personal pain point, actually a lot of business school travel kind of does that to you. Is that what we call the last mile of travel was less than ideal. If I wanted to go out there while I was exploring a destination or sightseeing, it was really, really difficult to actually receive good quality information, curated, packaged in the right format at a reasonable and convenient price point. The only options were guidebooks, which were not really designed for the last mile of travel. They're more planning tools. Human guides that were ridiculously expensive. I've heard quotes as high as 250 euros a day in Turkey, and 2,000 rupees for a 4-hour tour in Bombay, in India. And as for a tech savvy guy like me, the last option I was left with was opening up Wikipedia, or and trying to read up on that, and that's 500 years of history either condensed into 5 lines or 5 pages, both of which are not convenient. So that's really where the idea for the business came from. I started the business in 2011 as a very old school business. It was we were a traditional audio guide player. We provided audio guides at the Taj Mahal. We were the official audio guide provider with the Archaeological Survey of India. And we've kind of evolved from there into a mobile app model where we have a single mobile app called the Audio Compass Guide. It's available for iOS and Android, and that has over 600 points of interest across the country, and we continue to add to that. So on the challenges, if you kind of think about, keep the story in the background, there were a lot of them. I think the first challenge that I faced where actually business school helped me a lot in thinking through it is distribution. I realized that being the official audio guide provider at the Taj Mahal meant that even though it was a B2C business and I was dealing directly with my consumer, I had to go through the government. And that transition was to recognize that I needed to make that transition and bypass these huge organizations, governmental organizations, non-profits that are really slow moving and convincing. And first I need to sell to them and then to my consumer was a bad idea for someone of my size and my level of funding. So that was one transition. Now we're dealing with other issues, which we're still figuring out. Any mobile startup player would talk about discoverability of your app. I mean, how do you make sure people actually discover your app? There's no search engine optimization like there is and it's hard to advertise apps. The ticket size is much smaller. So thinking through the financial aspect of it as well is another thing that we're still thinking through, and it's still a challenge. Becoming self-sustaining, I think that's another big thing. We've raised some money from a strategic and a financial investor. That money is not going to last forever. So we need to either get to a point where we can sustain ourselves, 18 to 24 months from now, or we become the next hottest thing and someone else comes in and puts more money. And so that's another sort of thing that we're thinking through. So there's a lot of sort of ongoing challenges. I just wanted to highlight some of the big ones that I've dealt with.
Okay, thanks Gautam for sharing that. Actually, a really good concept, and I've personally used your app, and I love all the marketing promos you put on Facebook as well. So you have a really great concept going. I'm wishing you all the best on that. Shuchi, over to you. I have purchased a bunch of your baubles, and I'm a very proud owner of a bunch of your jewelry. But for the benefit of our listeners, could you just give us an overview of your business as well? And I'd like to also get your perspective being a woman in business. Any challenges you faced from that perspective, if you could highlight those, less on the operational and perhaps more from a being a woman in business perspective, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, sure. So my business is largely catered to women. I mean, I remember when I was doing research on this business, I read a stat which said that when women move from middle management to senior management, in terms of responsibility, about the number drops from 27% to 12%. So it's obviously goes to show that women have a really hard time with balancing the increased responsibility of senior management roles and also trying to manage their personal business. And then when I started talking to women in India, I found that a lot of women who had left their jobs in after working for 5-6 years for personal reasons, either to get married or to have children, when they decided that their kids were old enough and were trying to come back into the workplace, were having a really hard time. Companies are not that open, corporates are not that open to rehiring women who've been away from the workplace for so long for a variety of different reasons.
Vibha, can you? Okay, sorry, I think we had a tech issue again.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, so basically, I think that in general, women, it was one of those things where women, there's so many of these women who are doing these businesses from their home that we thought, what if we actually created some kind of organizational structure to this whole chaos? So we started Pippa Bella, where Pippa Bella is a jewelry brand that currently a jewelry brand, but we're also expanding into other products where we offer women the opportunity to become an entrepreneur without having to invest heavily in inventory and without having to deal with shipping and logistic hassles. So every one of our entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, gets their own e-commerce portal that they can then use to put our products or curate our products on. So we now have over 800 products on our website that our agents and entrepreneurs can curate and put onto their own e-commerce portals, and then promote that, use that link to get orders from their networks and their social circles, and we then take care of all the shipping, logistics, and they earn a commission on it. So it's a very flexible job. It's an opportunity for these women to really go out there and earn livelihoods. We've had some entrepreneurs who've earned anywhere from 5,000 rupees to a lakh a month, and have been able to like actually support family holidays through the money that they've earned. So for us, it's been a very exciting journey, and we're still very small. We're still long way to go, but yeah, that's about us. That's what it is.
Okay. And any challenges being a woman in business? Anything from your personal and anything through the operations, fundraising, anything any roadblocks you've hit specifically from a gender perspective that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would say, I think the biggest probably, hurdle wasn't so much operationally, but more from a financial, like raising money point of view. I think it becomes hard for investors who are largely, the whole VC world is largely male dominated to maybe, understand what it's like to be a female entrepreneur or want to run a business that's very female centric. So a lot of people don't get that, and so it took a little bit of convincing. I got a lot of questions. I remember when I was raising money that what happens once you get married. And so, I think just questions like that as a woman are difficult to circumvent, and you have to just learn to answer them and with a smiling face.
Okay, great. So you both have really good businesses going now. Some of the funding challenges have been circumvented. Operational challenges, I guess, will be ongoing, but that's relevant for every stage of your business. What's the 5-year vision on the business? Where do you see your businesses going in the next 5 years?
So I can take that first. The one thing that I can say is that what we're very clear about in Audio Compass is that we are going to be a last mile player, and we want to enhance the way people travel in India and hopefully soon around the world while they are actually traveling. We're not interested in getting into the booking or the planning stage. Our focus right now, we've got a lot of ideas. I can't share too much detail, but essentially we're working on creating an experience that makes it a lot easier to access content and make it a lot easier to discover interesting places around you while you're traveling. So that's essentially kind of what our plan is. Of course, we continue adding destinations and we'll soon move overseas. But that's really the overall business.
For me, I would say that it's similar. We just raised money about 3 months back, so we're trying to use the money wisely across a bunch of different projects, and we've got a lot of exciting collaborations. The fashion industry is like close to a 20,000 crore industry, so there's just a lot of opportunity for us to grow. I think that at this point of time, we're literally just riding this consumer wave that's hit India, and I think there's just a lot of scope and a lot of potential to grow, not only in the online space, but also the offline space, maybe some hybrid models there. So, lots going on. I think it's difficult to say what's going to happen in 5 years, but
most entrepreneurs don't know what's happening tomorrow.
Yeah, that's so true.
Great, but both of you are very, very, it's large sector bets you've taken, both tourism and online retail, the sky's the limit. So fortunately, you're both in large spaces to start with. So truly, sky's the limit for both of you. As we conclude this event, your final thoughts on why someone who already has a business or wants to go down the entrepreneurial path should do that MBA. Your final concluding thoughts on this.
So, like I said earlier, I think for me, the you know, 2 or 3 big things about an MBA that keep coming back to me, you know, beyond the classes I took and the, you know, modeling and all that stuff that I learned. One is I think you know, the credibility and the confidence that I got, you know, from and the exposure that I got, I think was unparalleled. I don't think that there's any kind of experience that can replace you know, that kind of exposure in such a short period of time. The other thing that I use a lot is, you know, it's a little strange, but the ability to be really objective and look at data and make data-driven decisions. That doesn't necessarily mean numbers, but to be able to, you know, look at businesses objectively and to look at your own business and see what's working and what's not working, I think is really you know, what I got out of my MBA, and I think that alone is worth, those two things alone are worth spending the 2 years of your life. I think it's phenomenal, and I would strongly recommend it.
Yeah, for me, I think that, you know, what I would recommend to most aspiring entrepreneurs who are really looking to do an MBA is that you can get so much out of an MBA. It's amazing. But I think what's really important as a precursor to that statement is that you should just pre-plan a little bit. If you're already looking to go down the entrepreneurial route, I think it wouldn't hurt to spend a few weeks, sort of, you know, maybe the first couple of months of your business school, just trying to understand how and what the resources are available at the university that can help you with your business. Even though you may start your business 2 years hence, you know, you want to make sure you're starting to take the right classes. You want to make sure you are, you know, planning it in a way where if you want to use the summer to test things out, that you've got a timeline in terms of, you know, activities and milestones that you want to hit throughout the 2 years. And I think that, you know, there's a lot you can do. You can work with professors on specific projects, like a price. You can take a price instead of taking a pricing class. You can work with a professor to develop a pricing strategy for your product or your business. You know, so there's so much you can do, but it only really comes to effect if you planned it a little bit, or if you've been a little bit smart about, you know, planning and building your whole, you know, MBA strategy. So that's just my advice, that if you are going down the entrepreneurial route and you know you want to do that, then do an MBA, but be smart about it.
I think that, you know, just want to jump back in. I think that's kind of what, maybe if I had, in hindsight, I think that was a little bit of my regret. You know, I didn't do that because I think I went to school, you know, that extra year that had I spent that extra year, I think I would have been able to do exactly what Shuchi just described. And I wasn't able to, and, you know, I'd like to think I landed okay, but it would have been great if I could have. I think it would have mitigated a lot of mistakes that I made now.
Guys, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I wish I had access to this event 5 years before, because I would have definitely geared my MBA decisions in a very different way. So thank you so much, and thank you for the honesty, for making it so personal, and for keeping it really real for the audience. I think that's really been helpful, because, you know, through the conversation you've shared personal anecdotes which a lot of young startups would not put out there. So thank you for being so upfront and sharing these personal insights. I'm very sure that a lot of people listening to this are going to take back some really good nuggets of advice. So thank you so much. And for all you entrepreneurs out there, I hope you're at least going to flirt with the idea of entrepreneurship and flirt with the idea of fundraising, and, you know, take all the great advice that Shuchi and Gautam shared with us this evening. So thank you so much, and we will be back soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vibha.
Thanks, Vibha.